Princess Kellis of the Ver Dominion hated silence with a passion so intense that court musicians followed her like armed guards. Because in her empire, quiet meant weakness, hesitation, uncertainty, and those were the first symptoms of death. So every hall she entered rang with crystal chimes and the constant chorus of servants trained to answer before she finished speaking, which was why the first time she met Commander Adrian Vale of Earth, she mistook his silence for fear and smiled like a woman already choosing where to place the trophy. The treaty chamber floated above the cloud bands of Orestes Prime, a circle of black glass and silver light with stars spread beneath its floor. Kellis arrived in white battle silk threaded with gold circuitry, her attendants fanned behind her, and every step announced rank, power, certainty. She spoke before the doors finished opening, spoke while the diplomats stood, spoke as though conversation itself were territory she intended to conquer. The human envoy did not interrupt once. He only watched from the chamber. Broad-shouldered, in a dark uniform, with no jewels, no cape, no ceremonial weapon, his face calm enough to be insulting. And when she finally stopped to demand whether Earth had sent a negotiator or a statue, Adrian Vale answered with a single measured glance. And no words at all? That was the first wound. And no one in the room knew it yet. Kellis laughed to cover the strange shift in the air, then attacked the silence the way she attacked everything, directly and with too much force. She mocked Earth's smaller fleet, its late arrival, its refusal to display military honors. She asked whether silence was a Terran custom or merely a disguise for having nothing worth saying. Ministers along the outer ring gave eager laughs, and still, Adrian said nothing, because he was studying the rhythm of her impatience, the places where her confidence outran her judgment. When he finally lifted his eyes to meet hers, it was not with anger, but with the patience of a man waiting for a door to open by itself, and that was when her court began to lean toward him in the Dominion. Silence was unnatural, a vacuum to be filled, so Kellis filled it harder. She turned to her admirals, demanded casualty projections for a hypothetical war with Earth, asked how long human supply lines would last under orbital harassment, invited her intelligence minister to summarize rumors about fractured Terran politics. Every question was a performance. Every answer a blade meant to cut the envoy down without giving him the dignity of open insult. Adrian let the storm build. Because humans had learned long ago that some enemies destroyed themselves faster when given room. He stood still while they revealed fleet ranges, assumptions about Terran logistics, confidence in their defensive grid, and worst of all, their need to prove superiority in front of their princess. When Kellis finally demanded whether the human planned to negotiate before the stars burned out, Adrian spoke 8 quiet words and changed the gravity of the room. He said, "You have told me everything I needed to know." The chamber went so still, it felt suddenly airless. For the first time, Kellis did not have a prepared answer. 3 ministers looked at each other with dawning horror. Because they understood what she had missed, the human had offered no resistance. And in the space she rushed to dominate, the Dominion had exposed fear, doctrine, arrogance, and strategic habits. Adrian stepped forward and recited their own numbers back to them in precise order, then added what no one else in the chamber had the courage to say, that empires which could not tolerate silence eventually started talking over reality itself. Kellis felt heat climb her neck, not because she had been insulted, but because she had been understood, and understanding was far more dangerous. Then the human unsheathed the silence a second time. He placed a data prism on the black table between them and said nothing while it activated. Above it bloomed a map of Dominion border space. Red fractures spread across trade corridors. Mutiny markers flashed at outer garrisons. Encrypted treason traffic pulsed between noble houses and an off-record weapons syndicate. The room erupted at once, admirals barking, ministers denying, attendants stepping back in shock, but Adrian did not raise his voice to compete. He simply waited, and that was the cruelty of it. Every shout around him made him look more certain. Every frantic denial made the evidence feel heavier. When Kellis demanded where he had gotten the intelligence, he met her stare and left another silence hanging just long enough to become unbearable. Then answered, "From people in your empire who also talk too much." It was not wit that struck her. It was control. He used quiet the way others used artillery, not to fill space, but to shape it, to force the enemy to hear the things they had been drowning out all along. What happened next would be remembered for generations. Kellis looked around and saw panic wearing noble faces. And for the first time in memory, she raised a hand not to command speech, but to cut it off. The chamber obeyed in ragged pieces, then in full. Silence spread slowly, awkwardly, like a new atmosphere forming. In that stillness, she heard the faint grind in a damaged wall vent, the nervous click of an admiral's artificial thumb, the uneven breath of a minister who knew his messages had been found. And beneath those sounds, something even stranger, clarity. She turned back to the human and saw not an enemy reveling in victory, but a commander offering one last choice. Adrian told her Earth had not come to threaten the Dominion. It had come because a collapsing Dominion would ignite half the sector. And humanity preferred difficult neighbors to burning civilizations. He said alliance was still possible. But only if she learned what every human soldier learned sooner or later. That silence was not emptiness. Silence was where lies ran out of places to hide. Kellis held his gaze for a long moment, then dismissed her musicians, her attendants, and half her court. When the doors sealed and the chamber quieted for real, she took her seat across from the man she had tried to drown in words. And at last she gave him the highest form of respect her species knew. She stopped speaking first and began listening. That was the day the princess lost the room and saved her empire.